Well, hi everyone, and welcome to episode one of the sign of Cancer on AstroSoup. Good Lord, brain is already going somewhere else. Anyway, so it I think our journey through cancer is always, at least for me, a very interesting one, which is really a boring way of describing it, but we're going to get to a little bit more of that uh, after we do the opening gambit, which uh, when I was thinking about cancer and how I relate to that sign, it and I started to realize that our daily rituals, our daily habits actually support and strengthen us in ways that sometimes we don't see. But they also give us some space to really process our lives. Like, for instance, while you're filling the dishwasher, or um, well, I don't know if anybody actually washes dishes anymore, but I'm sure there are people who do that. So just think about daily rituals, and I'm not talking about looking at your phone, because I don't think the phone actually gives you any space for anything. Um, Says a person who fights the addiction to look at it all the time. Um, but mostly to entertain myself, not necessarily to look to see what people are saying, or yeah, whatever. So what is it? What does it? We don't realize that our habits are actually rituals, because we tend to think of rituals as something a little bit more grandiose or deeper, whatever. But um, the everyday stuff, which is, and especially with this particular cycle of the moon going through, the sun going through Cancer, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in lunar rhythms, because the full moon is in Capricorn, which is always about balancing sensitivity with practicality. Anyway, when the sun wandered into Cancer yesterday, uh, the moon was in Virgo. So Virgo is often also amplifies that, what's important about process. So we're going to talk when we get to what's in the bowl, because it's a really complicated bowl this time. This month is going to be very active, especially the first week or so. But right now, we're just trying. I'm wandering a little because Mars went into Gemini. It wants to go in several different directions at the same time. So back to talking about these rituals. They can be a form of meditation. Like, when I teach meditation, I often say to people, well, you're often in a meditative state, you just don't know it. And Cancer is actually the first sign in the zodiac that is not connected to initiating something, doing something, or thinking something. It's about being present and being aware. So it's a more internal process. So whenever we do those daily things, because the moon rules daily things and the moon rules Cancer, whenever we're doing those daily things, there is an opportunity to become aware of our own feelings, our own where we're coming from, how the day has actually gone. Um, it's in time to honor yourself and give yourself space to just breathe, because you know right now, and I know that we often think that our lives are more challenging than they were 500 years ago. It's just, I don't know if that's true. I just think our stressors are different. Life is stressful. So, how can you take those daily rituals and take time for yourself while you're doing them, instead of becoming robotic? Well, I have to fill the dishwasher. Open up your mind, open up your heart, see what flows in. So so I was racking my brain so the only consistent ritual in my life every day is resisting doing anything on time, resisting having a schedule, which is not very productive at times, because when I actually I've tried calling it a framework as opposed to a schedule, or even routine, because Aquarians don't much like routine. Um, I realize that that's consistently every day. well, not every day, but it seems like almost every day. And then when I get in some kind of a rhythm, at some point my consciousness goes, well, how can we mess this up? And as much as I'm being self-deprecating, I also realize it is a function of having all those planets in Aquarius, including the moon. And I am always going to resist to some degree. It's just a function of who I am, and kind of getting over the notion that that's good, bad, or right or wrong. So when you're looking at your particular daily rituals and practices and routines, take time to ask yourself which ones actually bring you joy, because some of them are like that. Oh, I feel so comfortable because dinner's going to be on the table and I got to make. I mean, I do enjoy cooking, as long as you don't want me to be a Michelin five-star chef. Uh, I watch those cooking shows and it's like, wow, that's a lot of work. I don't understand. Oh my God, I wrote some notes and they just fell on the floor. Now I have to guess what they said. Anyhow, um, so then I was thinking back through my childhood and thinking about rituals in my family. And one of the rituals we had, because both my mother worked and my dad worked, which in the late 50s, early 60s was unusual to have a mother who worked. Um, the only meal we had together was supper. And so that was really important. We sat down to eat, but my dad invariably had to listen to the news on the radio at 6 o'clock when we were sitting down to have dinner. And then he'd get really upset if anything interrupted that. And it used to drive my mother crazy.
I can see why.
But I realized, that I thought about how he decided that that was a ritual that was important to him. And I was always half listening in the background, but I think it's interesting when you look back at your family, you look at your own life and how you navigated each and every day. And actually, I was thinking about you, Andy, and how much you like to craft every day, and that is one of your sacred rituals.
Hmm.
Maybe I stole your story. Did I steal your story?
Are you intuitive or what? Because you told me to bring a cancer story, and look what I brought, which is my cancer craft I
Wow,
was doing. So you get a psychic A+ for that. Yeah, I'm making this for a cancer friend of mine, and I put
that
on
is so
some of
beautiful.
the beads today. Yeah, it's gonna be. I love this kind of kit personally. It has a lot of gems and stuff. But
There
yeah, this
was,
is a very cancer activity. I have a few planets in Cancer, so I love sun going through Cancer.
it's so pretty. Maybe I should get you to make me one.
I will.
Um,
I'll bring it to you, Ak.
Yay. So just thinking about those things again, back to thinking about how those rituals fit into your life and how much they bring you comfort and security and a sense of safety. Life is uncertain whether we like it or not, and it is those things on a daily basis that offer us a grounding, a sense of belonging. Because cancer really is the first sign that's about belonging. And I don't mean the other signs don't connect, but there's a difference between connection and belonging. Finding your people, as it were. But part of that process is also realizing that this is an opportunity to find yourself. I think that one of the mistakes that's made when it comes to astrology is assuming that your chart is a static kind of thing and that you are that. No, we're always in a state of becoming and creating. So when we get into the sign of Cancer, we have an opportunity to find our emotional grounding and to, check in, especially at this time of year, on what does your inner life look like? Because it really is so much about your inner life. So I don't know if I have anything. I'm still thinking about the piece of paper.
Do you have a cancer where you're going to share a cancer ritual for yourself?
Well, other than resisting rituals,
Uh,
oh, I know. Here's a perfect Cancer ritual. Every day I have to have at least one treat.
mm.
for myself.
Only one. Wow.
Well, sometimes it's two. Yesterday it was two. Um, and it really demonstrates my capacity for delayed gratification because I will wait most of the time all the way through to the end of the almost the end of the day to give myself to pat myself on the now it's really interesting because of course we always associate cancer with food. So
Yeah.
that's my daily ritual and I really enjoy it. It's like, oh, I did a good job and now I feel really good. Don't know why I don't think I can do it at some other time of the day, but
Mm. Well,
results
I have to
matter.
tell
I don't
you,
know.
I have Jupiter and Cancer square Venus, which is like too many treats, and I have to have treats all day. I have four beverages next to me right now, and every one of them is a treat.
I don't know. Maybe this is where we have to accept Saturn does have part rulership of Aquarius because guess what my drink is? It's a glass of water.
Okay, okay. I've got mineral water and coffee right now. I got both. So
Okay, so I have to. I'm sorry, but I just have to get that piece of paper because it's going to drive me crazy if it sits
okay,
up.
okay.
Okay,
We will be here.
where did it go? It fell down. Oh, geez.
Oh,
Okay, this is ridiculous, but I'm going to do it anyway. Where did it go?
wow. This is the
Oh,
first time Leslie's ever lost her notes.
oh well, let's look at my sweatshirt.
In my defense, the moon was full and I was left unsupervised. Oh my gosh. What
Okay,
happened?
well there you go. So yeah, that's just one ritual that came to my mind. Um, oh, and I like to do my stretches every day. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't. Um, yeah, it's sometimes we forget that those things are for us, even though we may be doing them for other people. They're also for us.
Mm.
I'm thinking, my brain is going, are you sure? No, but that's where it's important that you actually include yourself when you're doing it. So take time, you know. I know, oh, I had this really great ritual when I came home from because all the years I worked for a newspaper and I would work in a newsroom that had 75 people in it. And I would come home and I would just want quiet. That was a little bit difficult when three children.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you think self-care is very Cancer.
Yes, yes. And in a way, you can make the rituals into self-care. Like you can have a ritual about, well, having a bath or even doing a quick meditation. A little bit later in the episode, I'm going to be talking about visual affirmations and how those can really help. You know, having visual stimulus is also really important because to me, and this is just my perception of art, it always speaks to my feeling center, to my heart chakra. It's not about what mentally um, supports me. It's always about being that sense of, beauty or something that speaks to you. I have quite eclectic taste when it comes to art. It's just whatever talks to me.
Hmm.
Um, and we're going to do color cards, but color is also a way to stimulate your that if you think that the part of self-care or the part of being aware of your feelings and your emotions, because those things are different. The feelings are more a sense of things like walking into a situation and this feels safe or it feels great or whatever. Emotions are our response to how we feel. And
Hmm.
so, and cancer, when we talk about cancer, we don't always make that differentiation.
Mhm.
So now I'm just going to plug a little bit about what's coming up, and then we're going to move on to. Oh, no, we're not. No, we're not.
What? What are we not
No,
doing?
because I just wanted to talk a little bit about a little bit more about. Um, oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say about rituals. So, in the rituals and the routines that and habits that you have every day, the familiarity is actually very powerful in terms of feeling grounded. So, if your life doesn't have any rituals in it, and you know, and everything is always you can't predict one day to the next, that really is jarring for your whole body and your whole consciousness.
Mhm.
And so I'm not saying that people should necessarily adopt rituals and habits or routines that don't resonate with them. But if you talk to any 6 people and ask them what their day looks like, I would be surprised if everybody had a day that looked the same. Unless, of course, you have children, in which case, yeah, maybe. So I just wanted to talk a little bit before we move on. Um, my brain is going, are you sure that's what you want to do? Back to the back to I just want to give you a quick summary, everybody, of what's coming up next. So this is, as I said, on Gemini 1. I'm only doing 2 episodes a cycle. I have not yet started the reels and the stories. Had a major writing deadline to deal with and other stuff. So episode 1 is always going to be a full breakdown of what's in the bowl for the month. That doesn't mean there won't be updates along the way, just to focus on specific things because there's, especially this month, there's so much going on. There's no way that I could probably talk for 2 hours about it. And I'm sure, well, I know I don't want to talk about it for 2 hours. Um, so there's no guest today. There's just me. Uh, Cancer 2 will drop on July the 6th, and it will be a live episode. And my guest will be Sonia Francis, and she's no relationship to me, at least not that I'm aware of. And we're going to,
Nepotism.
what?
I said nepotism.
Hardly. If I'm related to anybody, I'd be related to her husband somehow, some way, because he's English, and that's what the Francis name, that's the heritage there. Anyway, we're going to be talking about vulnerability, and I'm hoping to talk to her about self-coaching because she's not just an astrologer, she's also a coach. And I, sometimes I think that if you're an astrologer, coaching is, it kind of goes along with it, but maybe not. At least I know it does for me. So I just wanted to find out if there are any tips for self-coaching, like how you can handle things. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have a coach, but sometimes you're in a situation where you need a little support, and maybe you could give yourself some support. Good Lord, I've already been talking for 20 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Well, yeah, okay. So Cancer. So often I think that okay, I'm just going to skip ahead. Well, so what's the gift of Cancer? Sensitivity, adaptability, the capacity to make connection out of just about out of the smallest acts, like cooking dinner. Like, you think about the Cancer energy, and it seeks not just connection, but what did I say earlier? It seeks a familiarity. It wants to be part of something. It wants to have that warm, fuzzy feeling that comes from making those deeper emotional connections. And there I use the word connections again because my brain is not providing the other word that I was looking for. So, and every year, and we often forget this, every year the sun is going to go, no matter whether any of you who are listening are astrologers or not, it's going to affect some aspect of your life. So it might be a good idea for you to just take some time to think about what happens normally during this period of time in your life, and you'll know somewhat about where Cancer speaks to you through that particular lens. Because for people, it could be their career, it could be their relationships, it could be their money, it could be how they like to have fun. So we don't, when I'm talking about this, obviously it's in somewhat general terms, but I just want to give you a sense of how this feels. And somehow I forgot to mention, I'll mention the other stuff I was going to mention in the teaser when I get later, when we get to. So, what's in the bowl this and for Cancer 2026? Well, so here's what I wrote down. Optimism, chaos, sun changes in direction. Because we have two planets changing signs. Jupiter moves into Leo, Mars is about to move into Gemini, and this is next week. So the 28th through the 29th, those 2 days are going to be jam-packed with a lot of stuff.
Do you want to pin yourself?
I forgot I was going to do that. Thank you so much for.
I just want you to be front and center.
Well, it didn't do what I asked it to do. It says remove pin, but
Oh, I don't know. It might be the setting or the
oh, it's up here.
speaker
You know
view.
what? Let's
Okay,
not
the
worry about
speaker.
it because that'll take up valuable time.
Okay.
So you're going to feel pretty jumbly and a little bit unsettled and some discomfort because we enter the sign of Cancer and this is especially important because obviously the moon rules Cancer, in a crescent phase. The moon is increasing in light. But it's interesting that I was talking about rituals because a crescent phase can often ask you to take a look at the things that you're carrying around that you don't need to carry around anymore, whether that relates to your family, old habit patterns, whatever. So this particular Cancer cycle with Sun in Cancer, Moon in Virgo is all going to, there's an underlying insecurity to that. Because Cancer is always about refining process, always about making sure that everything is working in a way that feels good. But there's also can be a huge degree of self-criticism that goes along with that. So if you're feeling insecure during this particular cycle of the moon in Cancer, the sun in Cancer, just take a deep breath and realize ain't nobody perfect. And it's more a case of can you adapt, which is one of the Cancer's greatest gifts is the capacity to adapt, provided it's you're in touch with your feelings and your emotions. Because if you're not, then the whole thing gets to, because there's always this push-pull in Cancer between being open and vulnerable and trying to protect yourself at all costs. So that energy is kind of like open, close, open, close. And with some of the jumbly energy that's going on, because Mars going into Gemini and conjuncting cozying up to Uranus, so that they're going. So we have it means things are going to be slightly unstable. So you're not going to be able to predict exactly how things go for the first 3 or 4 days after Mars moves into Gemini. This is not a full cycle thing, but the beginning of this cycle is going to really impact how the rest of the cycle plays out. So, embrace any discomfort that you have and realize it's just trying to tell you something. As our feelings and our emotions are always trying to tell us something. The only question is, are we listening? And the challenge that we face in our society is we really feel that emotions are inconvenient at best, which means if we can't express ourselves emotionally, then we're going to shut down that feeling function altogether. And life is meant to be a feeling, thinking, intuitive, physical experience. Sorry, it's like ding, ding, ding. I'm really anyway. So what are the other things I wanted to say? So you want to take all that discomfort and actually see where it takes you. This is one of the 3 cycles of the sun per year, where we really do need to inhabit feeling emotional territory. It's an invitation And instead of seeing it as a burden or a pain in the you know what, it's important to realize that you are a feeling, thinking, doing, being person. And it's important to embrace that, because otherwise it makes it harder to embrace, it makes it harder to actually be present in your own life, which especially, it's funny because we think that life is more difficult now, again, like I said, than it was 500 years ago. No, again, the stimulus is different. 500 years ago, more than half of the population didn't know whether were going to have enough to eat. And that is still true to a large extent in other places in the planet. So one of the other things you can do when the sun is in Cancer is really be aware of what to be grateful for. And as Jupiter leaves Cancer, that's really important, because Jupiter is going to ask us to be aware of what things mean and what we need to be grateful for. Because the more positive side of Jupiter can often be gratitude. It's not a word that we often use when it comes to Jupiter, but gratitude is one of them. Because if you take, Jupiter and, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, it's about taking the bigger picture. It's also co-ruler of Pisces, at least in my world. So again, there's how does this impact us, both in terms of how we live and how we be? Because those things are different, and not everybody can necessarily see that. Yeah, my brain, I can so tell Uranus isn't coming. My brain is all scrambly. I had all this mapped out because my Saturn and Virgo demanded that.
You
So,
made me think of that commercial where they're like, "This is your brain, and then this is your brain on drugs," and it was like a fried egg.
so this is my brain on Uranus, is what this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, plus just for the astrology people and that Mars is squaring my sun, so that's not helpful. Like
Oh no.
it's like this. Anyway, yeah, I felt like that last night. I hardly slept.
Hmm.
So, okay, is there any? So just be aware that you have the inner capacity if you look for it, because of course, not everybody would think that we all have the capacity, but I like to think that we can find the capacity, because capacity is a different thing for each person. But still, there's no doubt that Cancer seeks calm. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm suggesting that you find, and you can create a new daily ritual for yourself that allows you to be more present for your inner life, whatever that looks like to you. Like I said, Andy loves to craft all day long. It's one of the ways and that's her process, part of her process. So, what's part of your process where you're doing what you're doing just for you? And no, and that doesn't matter if it benefits other people. I don't mean that it's just about you. I mean it's for you, which is a different thing. I mean, this podcast is a perfect example of what that is, because there are days when I go, really, should I be doing this? And yet something keeps on saying to me, Leslie, this is important. And it's important for my self-growth. So I just want to acknowledge that this process for me, as I'm coming up to a year, I can't believe it's almost a year. We're only two months short of a year since I started doing this. And it's like it's been a tremendous eye-opening and growth experience for me. And so, when you look for those things that are going to be your personal bellwethers, that's all it doesn't, again, it can benefit everybody that you know, but if your primary intention is to grow yourself, because this is summer and things are growing, well, here it's still spring. It's raining and raining. In fact, this is interesting. it kind of gives you a physical example in where I live of exactly how this Cancer energy is going to be operating. It's been raining and raining and raining. And today they put out a warning asking people not to do laundry or use their dishwashers, and only because the system, the sewer system and the runoffs are completely overloaded.
Mm.
And that's kind of I'm really glad I thought it, because that kind of gives you a sense of what the energy of this cycle is going to be like. And it's going to be pretty intense for about the first 10 days. But once we reach the end of this month, things will start to ease off a bit. Now, I did want to talk about the one part that I really thought was important in this cycle, and that's the Sun square Neptune, because Andy's going to give us some remediation techniques, how to handle it. So the Sun, and of course, flooding is very much Sun square Neptune, very much Sun square Neptune. So, when we're looking at that, you could feel flooded by a whole bunch of contradictory feelings and thoughts. So you may find that your feeling center, like your solar plexus, your crown chakra, all your chakras could seriously feel like they're in overdrive. So Sun square Neptune is anything real? And this is an internal process. So I want you to take note of where in your life you feel this sense of somebody just pulled the rug out from underneath your feet. And remember, this too shall pass, but what is the purpose of it? So maybe Andy can talk a little bit about that and the remediation techniques, and then I might have something to say about that.
Okay, well, so we're talking about the Sun in Cancer square Neptune in Aries, and that you said is going to go on for a few days here. So, I actually wore my cross and stars today because not everyone's into crosses or Christianity, or but spirituality in general is very Neptunian, and it's a very healthy use of Neptune. Sometimes when we get into Neptune problems, it's drugs and escapism and things like that, and we see it a lot of recovery programs that they replace giving your will over to God as one of the remedies. But let's just look in astrological remediation under the Neptune chapter.
By the way, Andy wrote this book.
I did. Yes, it's a big textbook. So this is just the Neptune chapter of problematic presentations of Neptune would be lies, confusion, alcoholism, allergies, like just feeling like you're all stuffy, sleepiness, lack of resolution in certain situations, the feeling of being energetically compromised is very Neptune, feeling fatigue, struggles, psychic struggles, extreme sensitivity, the urge to weep, and sensitivity to light and sound. I recently had someone come to class who was in a Sun square Neptune transit. And you could see her aura was just very depleted, and it was almost like very wan and soft, And that's what happens when we get in these Neptunian states is we get real sensitive to things like light, sound, frequency, tones. And so we're sensitive to every single thing, and we get sensitive to just subtlety, really. And so what might seem like a lie might be that we're just sensitive to the subtleness of what's really real and things like that. So when you asked me to look at stones, and so I was looking at Neptune stones that we could wear for the duration of the transit. And aquamarine, is a nice, beautiful stone that represents calmness and clear communication.
Almost put
What
that
about
on
that stone?
today.
You put that on today?
Almost, but not quite.
Oh, interesting. And then,
Well,
go ahead.
everything you just described is exactly how I've been feeling
Oh, interesting.
for more than, but then Mercury's doing some other things in my chart. Well, of course, my Uranus is at 1 degree of Cancer. So yeah, I've been like this and like this. And
Yeah, that's
so
it.
when you described all those things, I thought, oh my God, like, yikes. And, I do want to clarify that because when we're looking at how this is functioning, in real time, it only lasts for a day or so. But because it's the signature of the beginning of the cycle itself, there's going to be that underlying tone all the way along. And so it's going to be hard at times which is why we're talking about the remediation, so you can find some ways to counteract that. And if you're and to also understand if you're feeling those things, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is.
Right. Yeah, we do a lot of psychic work under Neptune. Why do we have transits to Neptune? If when we feel sleepy, we lay down and close our eyes. And when we do that, we start visioning. And it's the vision realm where Neptune is really excels. So if you might need to revision how you're living your life or what you're doing. And so that sleepiness will lead you to that. Another stone is Neptunite, which is really good for intuition and psychic
I didn't
development.
know there was such a thing.
Yes, yeah, Neptunite is a thing. As far as activities, which is one of my favorite remedies, and then I'll be done here, but some of the for emotional healing would be swimming if we can get under the water. Sometimes that helps with sensitivity. Homeopathic remedies, which are of that kind of subtle variety. Attaching a higher meaning to everything, seeing the God or that's why I wear my cross, right? Like seeing the God in everything, remembering the universe and source and all those kinds of things is great for Neptune moments. Meditation, Reiki, aromatherapy, painting, shamanic journeys, angel readings. I have some angel cards. I might pull those out on this Sun Square Neptune. Um, and crying. So those are all some ideas.
Well, and I would say, I found recently that I can't. I'm looking to watch things that are soft and warm and fuzzy.
Perfect.
Binge watch something like that.
Huh. Yeah. Makes me think of Japanese culture, they call things kawaii. Have you ever heard that term?
No.
It's anything so cute is kawaii. Like,
When you say that, the only thing I think of is Kawhi Leonard, the basketball player. That's what
oh, interesting.
I'm sure that's not. His name is doesn't look Japanese, but anyways, and he's not Japanese. Anyhow, um, yeah, it's fascinating when you think about how all these things kind of surface under a Neptune, as under Neptune transits under Nep. And of course, if you have in your chart, which you can always find out by having reading, is what it's doing, what is the natal disposition that you have to Neptune. And of course, yes, it's a whole lot in my chart. Anyway, and so I know what I wanted to say. So often I find that, so if you close your eyes and you don't have to have any particular thing in mind, your consciousness is going to provide you with all kinds of things. I woke up at 5:41 this morning because my consciousness wanted to tell me something that I needed to say in the podcast. So, and I always have all these notes, and I'm lucky if I get through half of them. But that's okay because I have a lot of air, so I like information. So I did, as per usual, pick some color cards, and I think that these also might be helpful. Well, these colors, I love these. This is Ina Siegel's color cards. I love how
Wow.
clear the color. So this says access innovative thinking, which is very much also a Neptune thing. Like we always think that thinking is just a mental thing. No, it's inspiration as well. You can't. It's the inspiration that brings that innovative thinking, looking at things from a different point of view. I've been doing this is funny. I've been doing astrology for so long. There's sometimes I think I don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
It's just weird because um, it's become such an intuitive thing to me that when I try to be consciously think about it, it's like anyway. But that's just the way my brain works. And one of my favorite colors. So
I have to say that color matches your earrings.
it does. How did
Hmm.
I know? How did I know that? So again, it speaks to what Andy was just saying. Close your eyes, take some time. It was like what I was saying when I was talking about rituals. you'll be your consciousness is always willing to talk to you. The question is, are you going to give it space? And under a sun square Neptune, that's a really good time, especially when the sun's in a water sign.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
Neptune is Aries, so you're going to, again, this is very much innovative thinking because Aries is an innovator or an initiator, depending on your point of view. Most people would, I mean, I always get myself into a bit of trouble simply because when you're first starting to study astrology, you have to be careful because creativity, for instance, applies to every planet. There's some form of creativity inherent in every planet. It's not just one thing or one sign. Um, okay. I looked at what I fell off the wall and I already said those things and I'm shocked. Anyway, so the other,
You still agree with yourself.
well, no. Anyway, I don't even know what to say to that. I agree with myself. Well, I can always count on Andy to make me laugh. Anyway, this is turquoise, one of my very favorite colors. Actually, this is funny because guess what? I'm wearing yellow turquoise.
Yellow turquoise. That's a mix of both of the colors.
I didn't realize that. Anyway,
Let's
so
call
this
it
is
let's call it lemon turquoise.
okay. So this is awaken your empathy, which is another sun square Neptune.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely.
Sometimes Cancer wants to buckle down and you know, there's a reason why it's associated with the crab.
Mhm, mhm.
And so the only time you get to see the soft underside of a crab is if it's on your plate.
Oh God. You savage. If it's
It's
in your
true.
soup, if it's in your soup, your Astro soup.
I'm sorry if I offended any crab lovers. My sense of humor is a little bit British at times. So, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this full moon. And now I'm not really sure what I want to say about it, except that, of course, it's always a reminder that, well, we live in a world of duality and it shows up in astrology. There are signs that are opposite each other, but in a sense, they're on the same energy continuum. It's just one expression. So that for the um, full moon come along, just actually, I think the full moon precedes Jupiter moving into Leo. Yes, it does. Because I did charts for all these things just because I like to. So that's going to help ground us a little bit more. So we're not feeling like that we can take because Capricorn is about application and manifestation. Not that I really love that word, I don't, but it's about the physicalizing of things. And so that's an opportunity for us to realize that all this magical stuff that may have been going on in our consciousness or even our feelings, that we can actually express it outwardly, that it does, because the challenge with cancer is it can get stuck inside. And I mean, I think that so many addictions, which pertains to the Sun Square Neptune, are connected to unresolved emotional stuff. So, and of course, we're not sure how we still don't really like emotions. Uh, I think they're fine, but that's just me.
Well,
So,
they require emotional labor. Sorry.
yeah, that's true. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the sun in Cancer, the moon in Capricorn. So, what are you going to do with everything that's in here? Because there has to be some sort of an outward expression. But the purpose of Cancer, I think, is that we really, in our culture, celebrate the Capricorn expression much more than we celebrate the Cancer expression. And understanding that, they really are, each requires the other. I don't know that we always think about that in that way in astrology. That's kind of how I think about it. So there. Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add about the full moon?
Oh, the full moon? Geez, well, it would be, I think, a good time to set down rules and policies around emotional things, if something in your household, for example, needs a system, even the dishes or who's gonna cook or who's gonna clean or do what, domestic affairs, but it would be systems around domestic affairs with the Capricorn moon. So it's kind of policy making, but it's all for emotional reasons.
Well, I think that it's understanding, I mean, that what goes on inside your inner life um, fuels your outer life. So, in other words, and this is a bit of a challenge with Sun square Neptune, and it's doing a couple of other things that are interesting. Um, there's a call for a deeper response and adjustment to to our our emotional well-being right now, um, because the moon can tend to, especially with moon and with the ingress happening with moon and Virgo, is to spend all your time analyzing how you did it wrong
Mhm.
as a way of not actually feeling your feelings. Because again, I remember when I was working at the journal, and it was about a year before I left, and I was in a really good space, and so I there were a few times that year I got into the elevator and somebody said, "Well, you seem really happy." I said, "Well, I am." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "No particular reason." And they just could not process that you could be happy without there being a reason. That you could just be inhabiting that space. And so it's also a good time to really look at the structure of your life. It's important that and to recognize how much your feelings and your emotions determine what the structure of your life looks like. Because
Hmm.
I look back at times in my life where everything was just it was chaos because I didn't have the bandwidth. I was emotionally in a space where I didn't have the bandwidth.
Mm.
So it's really interesting under this is, feel your feelings, but take care of business too, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So, okay, so I alluded to this at the beginning. So this is quite a long time ago. I It was because of a story that one of my spiritual teachers told me about affirmations. And she was talking about a client of hers who had started using this particular affirmation that had to do with the morning. I don't remember exactly what the affirmation was. And rather than strengthening this person, it brought her to her knees because it turns out that that was the time of day that she was abused. So I then proceeded to do, I did a workshop on creating your own affirmations, so you could use words that actually work for you because words don't mean the same thing to everybody. And part of that process was to have people do. I would do a meditation. I get them into that meditative state. Well, they would get themselves. I would guide them to the meditative state. Don't want to take credit for other people's consciousness. And then we'd come out of the meditation, and I would say a number of words, and then they would write down where they felt it in their body and how what their emotional response was to the words, to some of the common words you find in affirmation. This is a rather long story to tell you how it was I arrived at, well, why don't people do visual affirmations? Now, this is akin to a vision board, but there's one significant difference, and that is often when you do a vision board, you do it in my experience anyways, it's rare that a person tends to focus on one thing on their vision board. They tend to try to manifest a bunch of different things, and which can then be somewhat confusing for your consciousness. So which one? And I thought it would be fun to find out what would happen if you just made a visual affirmation and see what happened, what speaks to you. So I even got my self-organized and got tips for that too, which I'm going to reach over. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate how that works. Just quickly, maybe I'll do that first and then I'll do the tips. So you can use a piece of paper. You can use anything you want. Here's one I made a long time ago. It says celebrate new beginnings. Now you'll notice that there's pictures, but there's also words on here. I don't mean a visual affirmation doesn't necessarily need not to include words, but it's just a different thing because you can do one word and then when you look at that, when I look at that, that always makes me happy. It always makes me happy because I chose those words. Those are words that work for me. So then, so you can use a piece. This is just I think I got these color cards. I mean, you can go to any craft store that sells stuff for scrapbooks. You can get all kinds of stuff there. Then I had some paper that I decided to cut up myself, which was in a different shape, like this. Then you can go for ones that are larger, like this. Or if you really want to, you can go as this big. I wouldn't suggest you go any bigger than that. And I'm sure, you you could even get something like this and cut it into sizes that you like. And sometimes it's just simpler because then you can stay focused on, like when I did this one, I did not set out to do this specifically. I didn't know. And that's the important thing to remember. If you're going to do this, I'm sure it's like when Andy's crafting. She starts and sees what speaks to her, what's calling to her on that particular day, which I know sounds weird, but lots of things call to us. We just don't tend to frame it that way. Um, so just to give you an example, I mean, when I was looking at the things that I have accumulated, all the stickers that I have, because I got these for the class I was teaching on visual affirmations. And I said to people, well, I had lots of different cards. As you can see, I had a lot of these and most of them are gone because people really enjoyed playing. And I think that's and Venus is in Leo right now, so playing is a good thing. And the Sun in Cancer, it does take us into the more visual realm. And what I mean by that are the things that emotionally connect to you. And so, like, okay, so I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll demonstrate and I'll make one and I'll just put a bunch of fairies on it. Right? See, those always make me smile. So, and it's funny because I think that it's really often obvious that we don't realize joy can be part of everything. Like if I'm going to do something in the kitchen, I put on music because because I get bored if I'm cooking and there's nobody to do. So there's lots of different. So in a way, I feel like doing these visual affirmations, you make it small. You can carry it around in your purse if you want, and if you need to remind yourself every day that there's things in your life that bring you joy. And so you can use anything you want on these. You can use stickers. You can cut things out. I cut this one out a long time ago. That I like, where there's a wish, there's a way. I put it in front of my face. No. You can use anything that you decide that you want to use. Like, this is an astrologer, Lindsley Lambert, and she's also an artist. And she she made this. You could, if you wanted to bring out your inner rebel, you could use this, right? Because it says eat it, Piaf, as in Edith Piaf. You have to. Anyway, even if you didn't, she looks pretty fierce even from the back.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
So again, part of it is what is it that you want to express? And you might not know. So the first thing I always say is, first of all, don't make it complicated. That's the other thing about doing a visual affirmation in a smaller format, then you can't make it complicated.
Mhm.
You could just go straight to your intuition. This is a perfect thing to do under this Neptune transit.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, I have all
This
kinds of,
is perfect.
and it's to and the purpose of it isn't necessarily so much about, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't mean you can't use it for manifestation. I thought they were really good just for raising your vibration, making, you bringing you some peace and some calm. Um, so if you're going to start this, I think it's a good idea just to um, close your eyes for a minute or two and just be present for yourself, because it's hard to do something like this if you're doing it only from your head. It's important to realize, and we sometimes forget this, that knowledge of the head is not the same as knowledge of the heart. It's
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
And you need to connect the two.
Mhm.
So it needs to have intention, but intention is also a matter of head and heart.
Mhm.
This is why I always had trouble with all the manifestation stuff that was going around, because the attitude is all you need to do is change your thinking. No, you need to change a whole lot more than that.
Mhm.
What did they call that again? I forget.
I don't know.
Um, Whatever.
Mhm.
I can't remember. I find that things that don't matter to me, I don't remember them anymore. So
Yeah.
like I have stuff like this, like I mean I do so love me words. That's why I thought, well, how is this visual? And then I realized it's I love words so much. Words are even visual to me. They may not be visual to everybody, but I love this one. There should be an award for this adulting business.
Interesting.
Oh, and I love this one down here that says only minor road rage. You know, I'm seriously thinking about starting a sweatshirt t-shirt business. So um that would make a good saying on a t-shirt, only minor road rage.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right.
And and then there's fun things like this. Just if you want to raise your spirit. See, there's one that says yuck.
Mhm.
How can you tell I
Leslie,
like?
I do want to do a time check because I do have to run at 30 because I have
My God, it's
something.
almost time is over. Okay,
Yeah.
so just so you know, and I didn't say this at the beginning, um, please email me at aquariusstellium@outlook.com if you'd like to be added to my newsletter, because I will have all these tips in my newsletter. It's now going to have exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else, and some of it will follow through with this. Um, I hope you guys got a good idea of how to do visual affirmations. So just one quick thing. So I always have wrap it up. Oh, and I didn't get to do AstroBites. Oh my,
You could do them without me.
I could. I
You could,
could.
yeah, I could just pop off and you could finish the episode.
I'm so used to doing two back to back. It's just it's like,
I know, I know. And you have a lot
well,
of good content. It's hard to squeeze it all in, you know?
I'm always fighting with time, and I don't always have a
Well,
understanding
that was your
relation.
thing you were manifesting was raging against time. So this is perfect.
Okay, so see you later, Andy.
Okay, bye everyone. Enjoy
Oh,
the
you said you have a
AstroBites.
time
I'll be
crunch.
looking at them in the newsletter personally.
You have to go right now, correct?
I do. I just have something. I'm a time person. I am a time person. You're a time
No, it's not
you're
that I don't like time. I just lose track.
nice. All right, well, bye everyone. Bye Leslie. Enjoy your
Bye.
AstroBites. I'll be reading in the
See you
newsletter.
later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so now I'm all by myself and I really don't know what to do. Yep, no, that's a lie. Anyway, okay, so just a couple more things about the visual affirmations before I close that topic. Yeah, don't make it too complicated. whatever calls to you. Don't try to edit yourself. When your consciousness is talking to you, and you filter out all the other stuff that's going on in your life, uh, that's it, then your consciousness, your deeper consciousness, has an opportunity to actually talk to you, and things will surface. Maybe they're unexpected to you. So, and also, I didn't mention this. If you can draw your own images, whatever works for you. And and again, look for images that resonate. And again, you can use words, just don't make it all words. Because I mean, I might have a tendency to do that, but even I'd stop myself because I do like pictures. So, and you're seeking a deeper connection with yourself. That's part of the process, and it's going to allow you to um, come feel satisfied with doing this. There's a joy that comes from playing with stuff. It doesn't matter how old we are. Um, there's always a part of us that enjoys play, and I do call this pen picture. No, picture paper glue. Anyway, my brain is not um, thinking in a straight line. It's going and doing its usual. Anyway, um, yeah, I had a couple of other tips, and I'm trying to see what they are. Yeah, these are meant to be supportive, not necessarily uh, defining things. It's support. It's not for definition. It doesn't mean that you won't attract those things, because the bottom line is the more open you are to yourself on an inner level, the more aware you are of what you really seek, what's authentic to you, which then allows for those experiences to come um, and surface in your life. Because often when we're not connected to ourselves, opportunity presents itself and we don't necessarily recognize it, because it may or may not fit into what it is we think we should be doing, as opposed to what we would like to be doing. And granted, life demands that we pay our bills and do all the things that make our physical life comfortable. However, we tend to sacrifice at times the other parts of ourselves that require nurturing as much as the home, the physical aspects of our lives. So, yeah, I hope you have some fun with that and enjoy it. And again, I give you my email address if you want to let me know how that works out for you. That would be great. So now we're going to move on to AstroBites, which is the monthly. It's like a monthly mantra, a word that you can use to meditate with. Um, I'm trying to remember what else it's supposed to do, because words have power and energy. So it's an opportunity for you to use it as a signpost. Um, my brain is gapping out. I'm really sorry about that, because I'm not breathing. I'm trying to get through this because I think I'm late. Anyway, so the astrobite for Aries this month is contemplate. For Taurus, it's risk. For Gemini, it's navigate. For Cancer, it's shine. For Leo, it's stabilize. For Virgo, it's sort. For Libra, it's initiate. For Scorpio, it's listen. For Sagittarius, it's breathe. For Capricorn, it's embrace. For Aquarius, it's ground. And for Pisces, it's search. So, you might want to write that word down, and before you take time to meditate, just write it down and see where you feel it in your body. See if how you feel about it. And if you resist it, then generally I would say that when you resist something, there's something of value there, and it gives you an opportunity to figure out what that is. So, and one exercise, and I might talk about this more later, is put that word, your astrobite, on a big piece of paper, like the ones I showed you for the visual affirmations, and just circle it and circle it and circle it until another word pops into your head. And then you let that word, and you circle it and circle it, and you just keep going until you've created a whole It's like a mind map. I'm sure that's what they're called. But anyways, you might want to try that with your AstroBite and see what happens. So there's been so much to cover, and anything that I didn't get to will be in my newsletter, and I will probably talk a little bit more when we do the July 6th cancer episode, because this is a busy time, and it's a complex time. And I know what you're going to say, but hasn't it been there that way for a while? Yes, it has. There have been a few months where it seemed like somebody took their foot off the gas pedal for a while so you could breathe. But here's the interesting thing. Even in the middle of all of this, this is where the rituals I was talking about at the beginning come in handy, is taking those moments to just be present for what you're doing. It's very much akin to chop wood, carry water. Sometimes we get so into our routine that we don't stop and we're not actually present for what we're doing. And when you get to the end of it, you don't even know how you managed to get it done. It's all a blur. And so, having said that, thanks again for joining me. I have two quotes for wrap it up this week because I had to have one that was funny. It was easy to find a quote that was a little bit lighthearted, but not too heavy about nurturing. And then I found this quote, which I really love. Always be on the lookout for ways to nurture your dream. And that was Lao Tzu, Laozi. And then this is the funny one, and it really struck a chord in me, and I hope it does in you too. If you can't be kind, at least be vague. And that was Judith Martin said that. I don't know who Judith Martin is, but she's obviously funny. So I hope that gave you a chuckle at the end of an episode where we kind of really bounced around. There was a lot to cover. And again, there'll be more in the newsletter if I feel I overlooked something, and I'm sure I will. So again, my email address is Aquarius Stellium, AquariusStellium @outlook.com. If you reach out to me and say you'd like to be added to my newsletter, I would be happy to do so. Thanks again, and until next time, be true to yourself. Take care.